This podcast is for singers who have music in their soul and want to be in the spotlight. We are INVICTA Vox Radio.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of INVICTA Vox Radio. As always, we are your hosts, Mike and
Angie Lee.
And today we're going to be talking about flexibility. Not physically in the way of Yogi. Yogi the Bear, but
Stick your head between your legs.
but I think this year's been all about, plans changing, needing to be able to be flexible with what's going on. And I know we've touched on this in the past that you need to be agile. You need to be able to adjust according to the situation. But I want to dig into this a little further because really we've talked about this concept a lot, that there's a spectrum to things, right? That nothing is ever clear cut on just, hey, this is how this goes. But really it's the spectrum of sticking to your plans, of sticking to your guns when you need to, and then also being able to be flexible enough mentally to say, okay, this truly isn't working, nor will it ever work. And as a result, I need to make some course corrections, some adjustments. I need to be able to shift what I'm doing in order to to get to where I want to go.
I love that idea of I'm realizing that what I'm trying to make work is not going to work, nor will it ever work. But the problem with that is most people keep trying to make things work.
Right.
When they're not going to.
The old, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results, right? But
yeah,
it's crazy how much people actually do that.
Well, I think that this has been such a crazy year to be a business owner, right?
Yeah.
Because the only businesses that are surviving right now with the craziness, and granted, we're really blessed because we live in a state where businesses are open because we're in Utah. So this doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. If you're in a place where you're still in lockdowns and, businesses are not allowed to be open right now. But for our purpose, for the fact that we live in the state of Utah and businesses reopened on May 1st and have stayed open, and it's definitely affected some industries more than in others. And we'll take all that into account. But the thing that's interesting about it is that we have had to be incredibly agile with our company to be able to get through this time. And we're doing pretty good. We're still moving, and we haven't lost our company. We haven't had to close one time. And because we were able to make some moves very early on with the quarantine and all the things that went into play. And then it was like audible. Like we had to keep calling different plays that we definitely did not have planned for this year. And because of those quick moves and that ability to adjust and be agile, we're still here. And our future is looking bright. And so yeah, obviously there's some things in the situation where hey, we're not in lockdown. That helps. But because we were not stuck in our old model and we didn't stay in our old model, and we're like, okay, we're going to have to, do things very different than we've ever done before, we were able to keep moving. And that's kind of what we're talking about, is how flexible are you to be able to change what you're doing if it's not working? Because at the beginning of quarantine, when it went into play, we had a week of figuring it out, finding out that it was happening and it was actually going to happen, to make some calls of, okay, now we're not going to be able to have anyone in our studio. And within that 1 week time, we moved our entire platform online. And the good thing is we already had the online platform. We just were utilizing it for out-of-state people and weren't really utilizing it for our entire clientele. But it was very easy because we already had the platform to set up to make that call and say, move. And as a result, we never had to close our studio. Everyone just moved online. It was pretty seamless. It was difficult. I'm not going to say it was not an easy call, or that changing your entire company within 1 week and your entire platform within 1 week is not difficult. But because we were able to be agile and move that way, we kept going.
Right. But here's kind of the flip side of that though too, right? Is the vision and what we were trying to accomplish actually never changed.
Right.
Where we were agile is in the execution of how do I get to that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that this is where I think people a lot of times, like, shiny object syndrome pops up, right? Because they're changing their objective from thing to thing to thing to thing.
They're magpies.
And each time, hello, magpie.
Well, that's because magpies collect like shiny objects in their nests.
Oh yeah,
I learned that today.
Okay. Yeah. I think there's.
Don't be a magpie.
Yeah. Don't be the dog from Up and squirrel or whatever, because every time you do that, you have to start over.
Yeah.
Right. But it's more, okay, I have this vision. I
see
understand
what I
where
want
I'm
clear
trying
out
to go.
in front. Yeah. Like
Right.
far out in front, not like next move, but clear out in front.
Right. I understand where I'm trying to go long term now. In getting to that point and executing and actually accomplishing that thing, that's where we have to gain this sense of flexibility and react to the environment sometimes, right? Obstacles pop up in the way and you got to swerve around them. Swerve it. But this long-term goal should be very slow to adjust. Like, if you're going to adjust it, as you learn things along the way about yourself and about what you actually want, then yes, that will probably change. That long-term vision may change, but change that incrementally. Don't change your long-term trajectory like crazy, right? Swinging back and forth and back and forth. Otherwise, you'll never actually accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm.
You'll just sit there and spin in circles. But when it comes to the execution of something, be flexible, play it by ear. And sometimes you'll realize that you changed too fast, right? Like, if I would have just kept pushing a little bit harder in the direction I was going, I actually would have gotten to where I wanted to be faster.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like when you're driving somewhere, and I don't know if you've ever been in a car with somebody like this. I can think of one friend that's always been like this. He would prefer to keep moving.
Who?
Rather than to like
say his name.
so rather than staying at a stoplight, okay, let's say you're going straight.
It's Chad, isn't
you
it?
pull up to a stoplight. No.
Oh, it's not Chad.
But you pull up to a stoplight. Freaking Chad. But you pull up to a stoplight, and rather than waiting for the light to change so that way you can go straight, you just want to keep moving, right? So you pull up to it, you do the right turn, and then you flip a U-turn, and then you take another right turn, right? Just so that way you can keep the vehicle moving. And really, by the time that happens, the cars were already passing. You took longer than you would have eventually, but you're headed in the same direction. And so sometimes it's like, okay, I just have to be patient with the direction I'm going in.
Yeah.
And be willing to sit there and work my way through that direction. And sometimes you have to actually completely shift.
Because sometimes you look at it and you're like, oh, wait, it's a dead end.
Right. It's like, we're in full-on traffic jam that's never gonna open.
Or it's a jam. Yeah, like it's never gonna open. And so it's recognizing when you stay on course and be patient, and recognizing when traffic is stopped and you gotta call a different path.
Yeah.
And knowing that in the horizon, you're keeping that, that distinct idea in the horizon of where you really want to go, so that you can find some other roads to get there. And I think that's the game, right? Like we've had an online platform for our studio for 3 years now. We've been using Zoom way before anybody even knew what it was. And so we were prepared in the way that we could move people online, but that was never our intention. It was never our intention to have our entire studio be online.
Right.
But we hit a dead end. We hit a blockade, and it was like, well, it's either this or nothing. So we're going to make the call. And as difficult as it was, and like another thing that's been a struggle this year is we weren't allowed to have our big concerts, right? We have big shows every year. And, all of us in this community, we all miss live music so much. But as a studio, we were like, okay, well, what can we do? What can we do where we can still have a performing opportunity for our people, and we can, in the meantime, maybe create content and do what we can do. And then we came up with, doing live sessions. And so that's what we've been doing, is professional music videos and live sessions for our artists, because we can do it in small groups. And we can do it distanced and, all the rules. And so, we actually never saw that really being a huge part of what we did, but it is now. It's actually part of the fiber of our company, and it's something that we're going to be doing regularly going forward. And so, blockade, call an audible. You have to be able to be flexible to see new opportunities and see different paths. Because if you just sit at the blockade with a hammer, you're never going to get through it. And you're just going to sit there hammering concrete. And it's like, okay, might as well just hit your head against a wall or give up, just be done with it. And so that the ability to change course and do it quickly. And like you said, kind of react to what you see coming. Not that you should be in a reactive state all the time. I mean, it's good to have a plan, but be okay with breaking your plan. Be okay with things maybe not going according to plan and still seeing off in the distance where we're trying to get to.
Yeah. And so for me, just thinking about it, generally, so what would be the difference? Like, when would you want to just stay the course and when do you need to adjust? And for me, you really have to look at the situation and break it down and say, okay, why am I not moving forward? Is it because I lack skill? Because if you lack skill, you don't need to change direction. You just need more skill or to find someone else who can replace that, right? Like, oh, I'm going to self-produce an album. And it's like you're trying to go that direction. It's like, okay, you can stay in that direction. We've talked about resources before. If you don't have the resources to get somebody else on your team, you can stay that direction and build those skills, but just know it's going to take time. Or you make that audible and say, okay, I'm going to bring in a producer. This is going to cost me something, right? This is going to cost something, but I'm going to make this adjustment for the sake of time.
Right.
But eventually you can get there. So it always comes down to me. It's like, can you make this work, or do you have to call an audible, right? Because just taking it.
And you guys, the reason we keep saying audible, for those of you who are not football people, that's what the quarterback does when he sees the defense and he's like, we should change our play or I'm going to get clobbered. And he'll call an audible or call on the spot a different play.
Right.
So
it's just an adjustment. It's a course
adjustment. It's a fast course correction. It's a reactive course correction is what we're talking about.
Yeah. And so again, it's like, when do you make these moves? When do you not? And because I think you have to be very careful to do it. Mm-hmm. I think because I think people can be trigger happy with reacting. Again, it goes back to this guy that takes a right turn, flips a U-turn to take another right turn instead of just going straight. And by the time you've pulled off that maneuver, you're actually behind
all of the cars that you were in front of. Yeah.
And so that's where you have to be careful. It's this really calculated decision making on whether you should just stay the course or whether you need to make an adjustment. And you have to just take it situation by situation and really look at all the factors that are involved. I would say most of the time, if we're going, and I think this car analogy actually plays out. Most of the time, if you stay the course that you're on, you'll get there faster.
If you're just patient with the traffic, patient with the lights, just patient.
Yeah, patient with yourself, patient with your teams, patient with everything, right? Because you have to know that some things just take time. Whether you're pulling all these turns or going straight, it's going to take the amount of time it's going to take to get there. So for the most part, be willing to be patient in what you're doing. But if you see that there's definitely an ability to jump ahead, or if you know that, okay, I can do this, but we're in traffic jam situation, right? Like,
or the road's closed.
We're locked up or road's closed, and I have no choice but to detour. Like, no matter what I do, I'm never going to arrive at what I want
if I stay this path.
If I stay this path. And in that situation, you have to be able to recognize that and then make the adjustments necessary.
And the thing that's interesting to note about that is that it's not always something most of the time when those roadblocks come up, those are things that you can't control.
Right.
That's something that's out of your control. And I think that's why this year has been so bonkers for everybody, because I know all of you have stories about things that came up that were out of your control and we had to make course corrections. And you either just stopped and you didn't do anything, or you figured out how to get around it. And that's just like the theme of 2020, right?
Yeah.
It's here's another blockade, here's another road closure, here's another traffic jam, here's a wreck that's in the middle of the road. Oh, this road doesn't exist anymore. We just blew it up. Like, that happens. And like I just said, most of the time when we come up to those traffic jams and those blocks, they have been put there by someone else, and it's something that we have to figure out how to get around. And so give yourself grace and patience in those moments to say, okay, is this something that's going to break and be okay, or is this something that I need to work around? And then you can look ahead and see where the best course of action is going to be to get you back on track, to get you where you want to go. And like we've said, oftentimes it's a path that you've never seen before, you never comprehended. And we've put a lot of cool stuff into play this year because of that, because we had to call audibles for our company. I mean, INVICTA Vox Radio exists because of that. And because during the first quarantine, it was like, okay, well, what are we going to do with all this time? And we got to work. And so we launched a bunch of stuff this year. And so, and there were things that we thought of doing, but weren't in the immediate, vicinity of what we were going to do. We had our sights set on something else. And because we had to change, we found different paths and different avenues. So it's a matter of how can you be agile? How can you see that those blocks are coming up, and instead of waiting for them to break or giving up, where can we start to look for those opening paths? Where can we look for those opening roads to get us where we want to go? And the fun thing about that too is that perhaps as you get onto that different path with still that goal in mind, that goal might shift a little bit because you see things differently.
Yeah.
You see new things. And that's not a bad thing either. But it's always having a destination in mind that's going to help you at least navigate around some of these blocks that come into your life and into your career.
Into your world. To the world.
Don't be a magpie.
Yeah, don't be a magpie and don't be a rock. Be something in between.
Why a rock? Because it just sits there?
Yeah, it doesn't move.
Also doesn't have a brain.
Yeah, okay.
Magpies at least move. Be agile like a fox.
Like water.
Oh, water is way better. Flow forth, friend.
Yeah. You know where you're going. You're going to the ocean. Just get there.
Get there. Flow through.
Flow forth and make it to the ocean. All right. But anyways, I think that wraps up today's topic. So
I think fox are very agile as well.
They are. I think it's more like sly like a fox, but we'll go with agile.
Agile like a sloth.
Like a wild monkey. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
They're pretty agile.
Cheetahs are fast.
They are that. Anyways, let's wrap this bad boy up. So the question for today for all you guys, get out your pens, pencils, write in the
journal.
In the comments, write in your journal. Just find a space to put it in. If you're watching this on YouTube, please throw it up in the comments. It always helps us to know what you guys are thinking, what you're struggling with, what we can help you with. But where do you need to be more agile, more nimble, more willing to make that course correction? And what adjustment is that? Or where have you been too trigger happy and you need to actually just steady the course, stay where you're at, keep moving forward on that path? Because people tend to fall into one camp or the other, right? Like they either won't move or
they move
too much.
Yeah.
They're that shifty guy.
That's the fox.
But anyway, so throw that down in the comments, throw it in your journal, figure out really where you can be moving forward much more efficiently if you do one of these things.
And truly too, if you guys don't even know what the destination is, you can't be agile.
Yeah.
So if you haven't figured that out yet, make sure you figure that out first and then answer the question.
Yeah. If the water doesn't have a destination, it just sits in a pond. So
don't be stagnant water.
Yeah.
That's
have your path. Don't be mosquito-ridden stagnant water. Okay.
Yeah, that's like a bog.
All right, everybody. So if you know anybody that would benefit from this, please let them know about this podcast. Share it up, like it up, subscribe it up, do all the things to it that you do to share something. And until next time, everybody.
Peace.